And Jesus said, There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that falls to me. And the father divided his living between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took his journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property on loose living. And when he had spent everything, a great famine arose in that country, and he began to be in want. So he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have fed on the pods that the swine ate, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was yet at a distance, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to make merry. The word of the Lord. Whose story did Jesus tell? The story of the Father? The story of each of his 2 sons? Yes. Jesus recognized that we are all prodigal children, and there is only one Father. The father in this parable had to be considered a fool by all his family and friends. Why would he continue to watch for a son who wished him dead, as indicated by asking for his inheritance before his father's death? Still, just like our Father in heaven, he watches and waits for his son to return. He does not send out relatives to force him to return. He simply waits and watches. And when the father sees the son at a distance, he runs to meet him. He delights in his son. Then he throws an extravagant party. Why? Because he had a story to tell. Why do we preach? Because we too have a story to tell. When we look at and reflect on our lives and see the love and mercy of God at work there, those stories are not to end with us. We have to share them. To whom much is given, much is expected. God has given us life and the freedom to accept or reject our inheritance. And when we repeatedly reject our inheritance through sin, our Father continually waits and watches for our return. And how he delights in us when we do. We have a story to tell. As I have been praying and reflecting on why I am called to preach, I was blessed with the song The Story I'll Tell by Maverick City Music featuring Naomi Rain. I can only imagine the prodigal son saying these words as he walked home. The hour is dark and it's hard to see what you're doing here in the ruins and where this will lead. Oh, but I know that down through the years, I'll look on this moment and see your hand on it and know you were here. And I'll testify of the battles you've won, how you were my portion when there wasn't enough. And I'll testify of the seas that we've crossed, the waters you parted, the waves that I've walked. I've got a story to tell. If you look at my life, I've got a testimony of the forgiving power of God. He'll keep you if you want to be kept. Even when I didn't want it, he kept me. That's the kindness of God. I've got a story to tell, and it's worth telling. My God did not fail. That's the story I'll tell. I know it is well. It's the story I'll tell. As we find Scripture big enough to break open, and then let it weave into our lives, We are called to tell the story of the living Word at work in our lives because it's worth telling. That is why we must preach.